As the classic writer once said, you can't understand Russia with your mind. And we won't even try, because diving headfirst into a cesspool is a thankless task. We'll just stick to tradition and try to guess what's fact and what's fake. Be vigilant, it's not easy. Ramzan Kadyrov has renamed the highest mountain in Chechnya, Kimsaylam, in honor of his son Adam. Now Adam Kadyrov towers over the entire republic. The mountains have already been closed off to tourists, and preparations have begun to construct a giant sculpture similar to the monument at Mount Rushmore. It will feature the large heads of Akhmat Kadyrov, Ramzan, Adam, and Putin. The project is promised to be completed by 2031 for Akhmat Kadyrov's 80th birthday. The second piece of news is no less impressive. North Korean dictator Kim Jong Un has appointed his 13-year-old daughter as the head of the nuclear forces.
What?
According to South Korean intelligence, the girl is already holding briefings with generals and giving them orders. Nuclear weapons are officially in the hands of a schoolgirl. We can imagine that she carries the red button in a pink backpack with a photo of Jungkook from BTS. Now hit pause and write in the comments which of these two news stories is fake and which is fact. We warned you it wouldn't be easy. Let's continue. And the correct answer is, Kim Jong Un's daughter really is now the head of North Korea's missile forces. That's a fact.
As for
naming a mountain after his son, Kadyrov, he hasn't done that yet, but does anyone doubt that it will happen? We don't. So that's not really a fake, but more of a prediction. And now, here's a real fake from Russian propaganda. Recently, it was the anniversary of the occupation and annexation of Crimea. For more than 12 years now, the swamp state has been claiming that Crimeans have always dreamed of becoming part of Russia, and that everyone, in a single impulse, joyfully rushed to their native harbor.
Putin is the president of peace. Hooray.
Propaganda tried to paint a picture where everyone in Crimea is exclusively Russian, who've lived there since the time of Prince Vladimir's baptism. They supposedly needed to be part of Russia so desperately they'd accept anything, even stones falling from the sky.
What's the name of that country? Russia. Oh Lord, help us.
In reality, Crimea was shocked by the aggression, and the vast majority had no intention of joining Russia. And being Russian by nationality does not mean wanting to live in Russia. The cold, hard facts speak to this. In the elections for local self-government, the pro-Russian forces in Crimea received a staggering 4% of the vote. That's practically within the margin of error. These are the real numbers for support in Crimea for unification with Russia. The current Gauleiter of Crimea, Aksyonov, better known as the criminal boss Goblin, received an unbelievable 9% in the 2012 elections to the Verkhovna Rada and failed spectacularly, like plywood flying over Gurzuf.
Sergei, your predecessors in the field of the Russian idea in Crimea, among them are some quite significant names, they actually aren't opposed. They weren't against the idea of joining Russia. What is your attitude toward it?
I think the time for that process has already passed. Today we live in Ukraine. I have a Ukrainian passport, Ukrainian citizenship, so all issues should be discussed only within friendly, brotherly relations between our countries. As for where the so-called referendum got the figure of 99% in favor of Russia, only Putin knows. Moreover, in February 2014, the largest rallies in Crimea were actually in support of Ukraine. On February 23rd, thousands of people gathered outside the Crimean Supreme Council to say no to Russia. The protests were so massive that the occupiers could only stop them by using the army.
Well, Ukraine, bring Ukraine.
Russian troops seized all administrative buildings and at gunpoint forced local deputies to make a decision about the fake referendum. The fact that the parliamentarians were forced to do this is confirmed by a participant in those events, FSB officer Gherkin Strelkov.
Unfortunately, I did not see it. I did not see any support from the government authorities in Simferopol, where I was specifically located. I did not see it. There was none. Deputies were rounded up by militiamen to force them into the hall so they would vote. What more is there to say? Yes, I was one of the commanders of those militiamen. I saw all of this from the inside with my own eyes. So your two components simply no longer function. I'm not even talking about the army, the Ukrainian one. Who are the main security forces? The army. The army continued to obey Kyiv just as it had before.
Just think about it. Neither the people nor the leadership of the Autonomous Republic wanted annexation. And this was despite the unprecedented information campaign that the Kremlin had been conducting in Crimea throughout all the years of Ukraine's independence. People still couldn't care less about Russia.
We gathered almost every day near the monument to Grigorenko, near the monument to Shevchenko. We expressed our civic stance. We declared that we didn't want any other country, because we already have Ukraine. We didn't know what was really happening. Yes, the Verkhovna Rada session was disrupted, but we didn't know that at that very time those little green men were already in the basements of the Verkhovna Rada, and that everything was already being prepared for the takeover during the night of the 26th to the 27th.
Of course, the morning of the 27th was terrifying. When you wake up to a call from your neighbor who told her not to go to work, the entire center of Simferopol was blocked off in an instant.
Today, the mood among Crimeans is even more anti-Russian. Even those few who once wished for stones to fall from the sky are now quietly horrified by life in Putin's paradise.
Did we really vote for Russia so that Russia would leave us without a means of subsistence? Crimea provided jobs, but under Russia we were left unemployed.
With Russia's arrival, prices went up and earning opportunities went down. The newcomers squeezed local businesses out, closed the beaches, and carved up the nature reserves. The tourist flow collapsed. Aksionov recently boasted that as many as 3 million tourists visited Crimea during the resort season. Even if you don't take into account that official statistics in Russia always lie and you need to divide by at least 2, it still clearly loses to the numbers before the occupation. In 2013, more than 6 million vacationers visited the peninsula. In 12 years, annexed Crimea still hasn't been able to reach that figure.
It is honestly just shameful.
Naturally, Crimea has also been graced with the famous Russian cleanliness and comfort. Rivers of sewage on the beach have become a familiar sight of what was once an elite resort.
This is a ditch that, to quote, smells like a swamp. Nothing else but a drain. From the shower stalls.
Right behind Krustalny, the situation is no better.
Here are 3 dead birds. And this is the local sewage. In the end,
the mess remains just as it was. Nothing else brings much joy either.
Right now, panic is growing even more in the Kremlin because the latest research shows that pro-Ukrainian sentiments are increasing among Crimean teenagers. Young people are increasingly seeking information from Ukrainian sources, learning the Ukrainian language on their own and communicating with each other in it. More and more young people, after finishing the rigid Russian school, are moving to live in territory controlled by Ukraine.
Russia, it's generous from all sides. You just live, and all day long you're immersed in propaganda.
Having completely lost the battle for minds, the Kremlin is frantically trying to act using old Soviet-style methods. And the Ministry of Education has been instructed to ensure maximum involvement of teenagers in all sorts of activities. Hooray for patriotic clubs, sections, and organizations, as well as strengthening pro-Russian propaganda in all children's institutions. The Kremlin old-timers don't understand that this pressure will only push young people and their parents even further away. We are confident that if a legal, fair referendum were held in Crimea now, the majority, just like 12 years ago, would vote for Ukraine.
There's a guy standing there smoking. You can tell he's a clerk, yeah, in a suit, stepped out for a smoke. And we're talking about something he doesn't like. Then he comes up and says, "Ma'am, tell me, are you from Sevastopol?" I say, "I've lived in Sevastopol for 50 years. I consider myself a Sevastopol native." And he says, "Let me tell you this. Those who lived under Ukraine, you should be driven out of here. Excuse my language." That really hurt me. You're not real Russians? And of course, I started crying, getting upset, you know. Afterwards, I didn't take a picture of him. I don't know who he was. And
as a bonus, a little quiz. Fake or fact? A championship was held in Russia for putting condoms on your head.
Is that normal? Let's address and resolve these technical issues immediately.
3, 2, 1, fight. There's one. Just like this. Move it left and right. Now aim, aim, aim. What are you doing? Oh wait, there it is right there.
Here's the second news item. The AvtoVAZ factory is starting mass production of hearses based on the Neva Patriot. The thing is, the funeral services sector is the fastest growing business in Russia. What's fake and what's fact? Write your answers in the comments.
I want to remind you that this video is created for entertainment purposes and contains elements of satire and irony. All facts and events are presented in a hyperbolized or exaggerated form to convey a comedic or dramatic effect. We do not aim to mislead, but simply focus on humor. Please take this with a smile.